John, there's so much written about. We're talking about mindset and all. What will be the mindset of Jasprit Bumrah? Look, there's so much as you've been reading about it. But he was long layoff. He came back, gave everything in Australia before going out in Sydney. He chose, what will be his mindset like? What his body's telling about fitness, so many things, when to play, not to play.
Look, I think one of the things for Jasprit is that he has a support network around him, and he also had success when he came back. The worst thing that happened to an athlete after a long layoff, particularly injury layoff, is if they don't reach the same levels of success for some reason or other, and that the impact therefore is often more profound. In Jasprit's case, he had significant success when he came back. With the type of injury that he had or has, then he always knew that there was going to be times when it would need to be managed differently in order for him to continue to have success, stay playing at the highest level. And it is through good counsel that he comes to terms with that. And he knows that his career and the length of his career, we'll talk about his sporting longevity, is going to be through sound counsel and sound advice. And that's where the importance of our colleagues here comes to the fore. So when in fact, again, coming back to COVID, one of the things that we talked a bit about to our athletes, in fact a lot to our athletes about, particularly the cricketers, was we posed the question to them, what are you going to do after your career finishes? And the wonderful thing about COVID was it gave us an opportunity for them to look at retirement. And so we actually posed it as welcome to retirement, because at one point in COVID we didn't know when it was going to finish, and it was almost like for an athlete who's injured, was suddenly everything was taken away from them. And so they were very exposed, they were very vulnerable. And so suddenly we put that back on them and said, well actually if this was you with an injury, how would you manage yourself? What decisions are you going to now make? Welcome to retirement. This is what it's going to be like. And so the better managed athletes, certainly amongst our group, but guys like Jasprit and others who've got good people around him, those questions have already been posed to him. And he knows that there are going to be situations where others are going to have to take decisions for him in order for him to have the best and longest career that he's going to have. And as I said, fortunately for him, he had a very good experience when he came back, irrespective of what happened in Sydney. But since then, he has had significantly positive outcome from his time away from the sport. Others that don't and come back and get re-injured, that's when we really do need to lean on our professional colleagues. Because the athlete who has a negative experience on return to sport after a significant injury layoff become very difficult to manage. And it's only through positive experiences that they continue to further their performances. And James will speak on that, not just from a personal perspective, but also from working with athletes who've had repeated long-term injuries. And there are many cases out there where careers have not been finished because of the physical injury, but actually because of the psychological barriers that have been built around that injury that's actually inhibited them in performance more than the physical side. That's the bit that we're trying to unpack now, and that's the bit that we're looking to take these books and these publications into our kit bags to understand it better from the athlete's perspective. But as I said before, my job is to ensure that the athlete has access to the right resources. And Jasprit, and I know some of the people that are surrounding him, he has the right resources. He's a very lucky fellow. But we need to demonstrate to the greater community that these resources are also available to everybody. And that's also equally, as Sachin mentioned, is that how do we bring this knowledge, these understandings, these learnings to the general sporting community and also to the general population, because the greatest value actually lies there.
John, thanks. We talked about concept. This one final, it's not that. Do you think you should be given the leeway to people call it pick and choose playing?
Look, I know that's a very controversial topic at the moment, and I'll happily tackle most controversial topics. I think that the athlete at the end of the day knows themselves better than anybody, and most athletes these days who have good support teams around them are taking advice from those people. But intuitively, most athletes know what's right and what's wrong. And somebody who, and he is a mature athlete, and mature athletes who have good support, I think 9 times out of 10 are going to make the right decisions. And what we need to think about is not the Jasprit Bumrah for the next series or the series after that. We've got to think about the Jasprit Bumrah for the next 2 to 3 years. That's where the greatest value is going to be for Indian cricket, out of the right decisions being made around him. So I look at this from a long-term perspective, and one of the things I often talk to my athletes about is, let's look at your sporting longevity and how do I facilitate your sporting longevity? What are the decisions that I'm going to help you make with my information, the information I can gather, to improve that longevity in your sporting career? And sometimes we've got to take some things away in order to add value to that person in terms of sustaining their career for a longer period of time. And that 1 or 2 matches here or that series away there, in the long term is actually beneficial, not just for the athlete but for Indian cricket in general.